Welcome, friends, to another Q&A session. This is, I think, Tuesday, or it could be Wednesday. It's so funny because I don't really know what day it is these days. Oh, look, my barista just gave me a nice espresso. Thank you, Aaron. And by the way, my own personal barista, Aaron Sophia, that's her Instagram name, my daughter. And I definitely suggest that you guys check out Aaron Sophia's Instagram page. Delicious. So, really good to see you all. And I'm indoors today. It's a very wet and rainy day, but hopefully, where you guys are, it's very nice and sunny. And hopefully, all of you hopefully, all of us can hopefully anticipate a quick end and a healthy end to the COVID crisis so we can get back to normal if that's possible. Okay, good to see you all. Stevok, Soulful Lens, Guntars, Soterios, Konomi. One thing that I really want to tell everyone is that I interact with a lot of you on the Digital Camera Mastery Facebook page and in my Facebook and even through email. And I often keep forgetting who you are based on Instagram names, which are often not your own personal name. So I apologize. So that's why I'm usually just, rifling through like Unleash Your Emotions '05. I probably know your name, but it's too hard to remember them all. Um, Kevin Moy, good to see you. Guntars, good evening. It's 5 p.m. in Ireland, and I'm really glad that hopefully this is a good time for everybody. At least I know that it's getting into evening for Europeans. It's early morning for my West Coast friends. That would be from Vancouver, California. And for my Toronto people, it is noon. I'm Marimi, good to see you. J Mo. If anyone's just joining for the first time, what we're doing is Q&A sessions. Anything photo related, lenses, apps. It could be even about editing. Anything that you want, ask the questions below. And of course, I'd love to know where you're from. So, for example, Unleash Your Emotions is from India, one of my favorite places, although I've only been there once. I desperately want to get back. So, welcome to all my Indian friends. Madina, Matthew, good to see you. Balsu Nigel, J Mo, good to see you. Hi, Mark. Is there any upcoming course? If yes, what is it all about? So, thank you very much, Soterios Konomi, for that. Yes, on my website, markhemmings.com, you'll see a brand new course. It's huge. You can't miss it. It's a huge picture of a woman named Kelly Lawson, and she is a friend of mine, a professional photographer. She does professional product photography, and we partnered to do a new course. It's called Product Photography Mastery, and it is very in depth. It's a big course actually, and it goes into depth on how you can. Well, it's two pronged. One is it's for people who sell products online and want to become masters at photographing their products to, like, if it's Etsy or if it's on any of those sites where you sell your products, to get better photographs of them so that you can sell better. And the other side is for photographers who want to get better at product photography so that they can actually make money by selling other people's products. So essentially it's a way to sell product photography cheaply. So you make your own studio without costing anything, pretty much, except a few dollars for some art supplies. And yeah, check it out. And if it's something that you're interested in, if you have any more questions, always feel free to DM me. I teach some of it. Kelly teaches most of it, but we worked on it together, and I'm really happy with it. So thank you for that. Takumi, good to see you. Hope all is well in the lovely and stunningly interesting land of Japan. Rianne Images. I'm, oh yes, Abhishek. Thank you so much. Unleash Your Emotions. That's right. Thank you. Anuj, good to see you all. Thanks for joining, everybody. GHB, Nice to see you. You too. I live in New York, but I'm from Kyrgyzstan. Oh, that's very interesting. Welcome. I don't know if we had Kyrgyzstan before yet. Thank you, Aaron Sophia. Hi, Mark. I just ordered the digital camera mastery. It's great, says Ronald Benitez. Well, thank you. That's awesome. And also, within uh, Ronald Benitez, when you're in the Facebook group in Digital Camera Mastery, the online course Facebook group, if you ever need to get my attention, just use at Mark Hemmings Photography, which is my Facebook name, and that should really, I think that should inform me that you have a question for me or whatever. Otherwise, there's so many great people in that Facebook group that there's usually so many people giving great advice. Joseph Corey, good to see you. Marios, good to see you. Thank you, Mark. Can you tell us some gadgets that we should buy for our camera? So, favorite gadgets for cameras for me would be, and I've mentioned this before, is a dedicated camera plastic bag that covers the camera for snow and rain. And this is if your camera is not weather resistant. You can get these online at Amazon, and they have a little Velcro strap that goes over the front of your lens so that only the front of your lens is exposed to the elements. Everything else is under a clear plastic bag. These are great. And if you put a UV filter on on the front of your lens, you will be all set for keeping your gear high and dry when you're out in the rain. Other gear, what else do I like? Let me think here. Well, because I do a lot of work professionally with iPhone photography as well, I really love the DJI Osmo Mobile 3 gimbal. And I don't have it right now to show you, it's downstairs, but this allows me to go when I'm traveling to go through a cityscape or a town and to do walking holding my DJI Osmo with my iPhone on it, and it's really still and stable. So I could even start running, and it's a very smooth process. It's very good for video, and it's also good for selfies. So if anyone has used any DJI equipment like drones or any of their selfie sticks, they'll know that they're very good quality. What else for gear? Well, I do, of course, tell everyone to get a UV filter for the front of their lens. That's probably quite obvious. Everyone knows that. And the reason why is because I have dropped my camera a number of times, and that UV filter, which only cost about $20 or $30, actually saved an entire lens. And actually, Soterios Konomi, I will come up with some more as well as we go on. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you all. Adam Cordano. I'm asking because I've done all three that you have already in your page. Okay, I will think of them, and they will pop up as we go through today. Interestingly, I'm very minimalistic. So when I go on a trip, I usually take one camera body and one lens. It's very risky, and that one lens is usually a prime lens. It's usually a 35 or a 50 millimeter prime lens, and I limit myself to that. Now, I don't suggest that for everybody. So what I would say is my extra favorite item are my camera bags, and I use a larger camera bag made by a company called Wotan Craft. That's Wotancraft for when I have larger gear, like a larger DSLR. But when I have just my small Fujifilm or even just my iPhone, I use sfbags.com. That's what is it? Waterfield Designs, and you can find the website sfbags.com. That's my other go-to is the appropriate bag, and that bag needs to look good. And both of those companies make really good looking bags. Marios, I bought the Nikon D3500 lens with the 18 to 55 millimeter. I bought another one lens. What is the better for beginners, macro lens or 70 to 300? Phew. Well, Marios, can you tell me, please, what your favorite types of photography genres are? And then I'll be able to answer you better. So, and the reason I ask that is because I could go either way on that one. Because if you get a macro lens that's like an 85 millimeter macro, then that's really good because not only are you going to use that for a normal macro, but you could also use that 85 macro for portraiture and normal, photographing any item that you have to photograph at a distance. Now, of course, the 70 to 300 is going to be extremely useful for getting really distant objects close. You could even photograph the moon and then crop in. There's something special about an 85 millimeter prime macro lens. So I'm sort of going either way on that one for you, Mario. So just let me know what your favorite genres are, and maybe that can help clear things up for you, and I'll answer. Suji captures, and Marios is from Cyprus. Oh, I'd love to visit Cyprus now. Soulful Lens, aside from searching other sites, etc., can you suggest how, where I can learn more about resizing and other techniques regarding being able to create sharp enlargements for printing? Well, yes. I don't know any right off. However, I have done a million resizing, so I'm happy to help out. And in fact, we can even help out here. So maybe what you could do if you want is say, Mark, I need to get an 11 by 14. I have an 11 by 14 frame. How do I resize that? And I can tell you and everyone else here in our live broadcast, because I know it inside out. At least as much as I feel, been doing it for 20 years, so I can certainly help you. Nightlight One, that's a great name. Hello, thank you, Joseph, for the wave. JMO13, white balance versus tint. It is kind of confusing sometimes when it's the best way to balance these two when editing. This is an awesome question, and by the way, I would like everyone to listen up to JMO13's question because it applies to all of us. Now, there's two sliders usually in most editing software, and what JMO is asking is, what's the difference, or how do I, if not, what's the difference? How do I manipulate these two for the best results? And I'd like to tell you all. So first of all, white balance is your blue and yellow slider. So you have on one side it's yellow, on the other side it's blue, and not always, but sometimes, but often, blue is on the left side and yellow is on the right, but that's not really that critical to know that. So that means that if we have a picture that's a bit too coolish looking and you want to make it happier, you would turn it to the yellow side, which produces warmer emotions in the viewer. Or for artistic reasons, you may actually want to go the opposite and make your picture a bit bluer or colder, which is very good for scenes that are less happy. Now, if you notice that if you are a fan of any war movies, or any historical dramas like, or any, what would you call it, superhero movies, whenever there's a negative emotion wanted to be produced by the director, they will put a blue color cast over the entire picture. This is done by the movie editor. This is extremely useful for creating tension, drama, and any of these emotions that the director wants sort of in the negative side. However, if you're looking for a romantic comedy or any movie that produces good feel or wants to produce good feelings, the editor will be changing things to the yellow or warmish side. And we see this every day in movies, and it's very, very effective. So that's easy enough. But what about tint? How does tint work? Well, tint is on the green magenta spectrum. Now, what that means is that one side, if you change the slider to the green side, you're obviously going to have a green color cast in your picture. If you go the opposite way to magenta, you're getting a magenta. And if anyone doesn't know what magenta is, it's sort of a mix between red. It's a bit of a reddish purplish look. And this is extremely useful for whenever we have a situation where we have fluorescent lighting. Now, fluorescent lighting is actually not as common these days, but you all probably remember those terrible long tube lights in grocery stores and supermarkets and all that, and even in offices, they still have them. They produce what's called green light, and green light is terrible. It looks awful. And even though our eyes, which are advanced, doesn't see the green light, the camera does pick it up, and this is a problem. So that's why whenever we have a green hue or tint in our pictures, we take that tint and we shove it to the magenta side, the opposite. And that really helps. Now, is there ever a situation where there's too much magenta in the picture, therefore we have to go to the green side? It's not as common. However, sometimes it does happen, But I will be honest that most likely you're going to be switching from the green side more toward the magenta side. And if anyone's just joining right now, we're talking about tint, sometimes called hue, Hue, and this is the green and magenta slider. So usually, like I would say about 80% of the time, you're only going to be balancing the blue and yellow. We call that white balance. Color shifts based on artificial light, like fluorescent lighting, means that you are going to use tint from time to time. Now, there is one exception. I find that if most of my picture is of greenery, so like a lush green garden or rainforest or something like that, I will actually find a great use in using my tint instead of my white balance. In fact, I will go to the green side of my tint, or sometimes called hue, and that will actually produce wonderful greens. And you might want to try that. For anyone who's into gardening, give that a try. Okay, Sotirios Konami, do you have any book to suggest us for basically for street photography? No, but I do suggest going back to the master, the grandmaster, Henri Cartier-Bresson, and simply doing a web search and getting inspiration from him. And one more drink here. He's sort of like the godfather of street photography. And I do believe that you can, if you go to your local Goodwill or Salvation Army, there's always a ton of books, photography books. And I know that Life series always, they always had these books on photography and the great masters, and there'd be sections, huge sections on street photography, and you can get those for like maybe like 5 books for $1 or something. However, current books I'm not sure of. However, I think that it's when we get back into the travel groove, I would like to do a book and a course on street photography because it's my number one genre, actually. And in the meantime, I guess the only thing I can suggest is that you just go carefully through my Instagram feed through the multiple years past. And because in almost every single trip that I've done, no matter where it is, I give really in-depth advice on street photography because that's what most of my pictures are. So just scroll through my Instagram, and there's there's so many tutorials, all for free and all for you guys. Great question. Kokarzen, welcome. Nightlight, hi Mark from. Welcome everybody. Good to see you. Okay, unleash your emotions. I have been shooting with the Canon EOS 200D for almost 4 years now. I have a kit lens, the 10 to 18 millimeter wide lens. Need your suggestion for a new lens. Landscape, nature, architecture is my genre. Okay. Okay, landscape is going to be wide, so you already have that. You don't need to worry about that. Your 10 to 18 will be perfect. Just use your f8 or f11, okay? That's very important because the 10 to 18, while it's great, if you shoot it at the lowest f-stop number, which I think is f4.5, you may not get sharpness perfectly around the perimeter. So you don't need another lens for landscape. Nature and architecture. I would say that architecture you're going to be fine with your 10 to 18 as well, to be honest, because usually you're going to be going to your 18 millimeter, use f8 or f11. The only thing that's different is nature. And what I would suggest, because nature, when we're dealing with nature, we're often dealing with flowers and so on, and we don't really want a wide angle so much. We want more of a telephoto view. Did you ever think about the 50 millimeter prime? That would be the f1.8 50 millimeter. And the reason I'm suggesting this is because it's cheap, it's sharp, it's small, it's lightweight, and you'll be able to get really good nature photos with it. And yeah, I would say give that a go. And another reason, if you learn how to take good photos with a 50 millimeter prime lens, you'll be all set. It's the best lens out there, and it's so inexpensive compared to the other ones. Now, on your EOS 200D, that 50 millimeter is actually going to be what we call an equivalent 75 millimeter lens. And the reason why this is good is it's going to allow you to get some really good flower photography for your nature photos, but it's also going to be good for upper body headshots or portraits if you like to photograph people. So that's my suggestion for you. Really good question. Deb Carey, welcome. I am sure and Drap. Um, Sorry about that. I probably mispronounced your name. Rian Images, hello. I like the flowers, but I like the moon. Yeah. Hmm. Marios, just let me flip back so I can read your question here, just so I remember. I bought the Nikon D3500 lens 1855. Okay, I feel, Marios, that you really should get the 70 to 300. Yeah, definitely. Even though I love the macro lens, if you only have budget for one at a time, you're definitely going to get more use out of that 70 to 300. Certainly. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Which is the best lens for street and which one the best for portrait and why? Great question. I'll tell you. It's my favorite question of all because I love street photography. So if you have a crop sensor camera, an APS-C size camera, and most of us do, you're going to get what we call a 23 millimeter, or sometimes it's a 24 millimeter prime lens. And don't worry about what f-stop it is. That's irrelevant almost. Usually we're going to be doing street photography at f5.6 or f4.5 or something like that. So, for example, for my Fujifilm, I use a 23 millimeter f2 lens for my street photography. Now, that's because my Fujifilm is what we call a crop sensor or an APS-C size sensor. However, I don't remember what camera you own. So if you have a full frame camera, then you would be looking for a 35 millimeter prime lens. And again, you can get the f1.4, the f1.8, the f2, f2.8. I would say go within your budget. You don't need to get the super expensive f1.4 lenses or f1.2. It's almost a waste of time because when we're doing street photography, we're not looking for background blur behind the people. We're actually oftentimes looking for either perfectly sharp or mildly sharp depth of field sharpness behind the subject so we can see what's behind them. And usually that's going to be a streetscape or a building or a really cool door or something like that. So that's why we can actually get a cheap 35 millimeter full frame or 23 or 24 millimeter APS-C size crop sensor prime lens for our street photography. Now, the second question is, why is that 35 millimeter or 23 or 24 so good for street photography? One, it's middle ground. It's wide enough to see the background, like for example, the mountains back here, but it's also tight enough to allow that person to be fairly prominent in the frame. So if we go super, super wide, then we're running the risk of, seeing the sky and maybe, the street right in front of you, and maybe that's not the best. So I find that is probably the best view. And the history of street photography is usually the 35 millimeter classic view. Now, what about your portraiture? The history of portraiture and currently is usually starting at 85 millimeter and going to 135 millimeter. That's the focal length range that most portrait photographers love to use. And if you have a crop sensor camera, you may be inclined to buy the 85 millimeter f1.8 prime lens, which works really well. If you have a full frame sensor, maybe you want the 105 millimeter prime lens or the 135 millimeter prime lens. And when you're doing portraiture, it's actually good to have the lower f-stop. We call it wide open aperture. And that's because it provides background blur when you are outside on location. So wedding photographers make good use of it. Portrait photographers who do outside on location work make good use of it. Now, if you're only doing studio portraiture, a low f-stop number isn't really that critical because the background is usually going to be white or black anyway. So it's not that big a deal. Okay, really good question. Rian Images, how does one decide which niche of photography does one go into? Great question. So this is sort of a question that I would prefer to answer on two fronts. One is if you're doing this as a hobby, and have no intentions of making money from it because maybe you have a full-time job or you're retired or whatever, then you go with where your heart and soul leads you. However, if you're looking to make money, either part-time or full-time, then what's critical, I think, is to actually not put all of your eggs in the basket of your passion just yet. Hear me out before you turn off, is that you actually choose a genre that makes a lot of money really quickly. And the reason being is that when you start out, you actually have a lot of upfront costs, and that costs include gear. It's also travel and advertising. In advertising, there'll be Facebook or Instagram advertising usually. At least it is for me. So what I advise is to do the quick stuff, even though it may not be your first choice. Weddings are very lucrative usually, and you always have weddings. Weddings won't stop, and family portraits, pet portraits, and even what's really popular these days are COVID quarantine portraits, family portraits, where you just take your car and you park at the curb and you photograph a family on their front porch or their front door or their front yard from the safety of your own car. And the family can have a little sign that says, "We're safe during COVID crisis," or something cute like that. And they use that picture to send to their grandmother, the friends and family. And it's actually a fairly good business. It's a really good business idea. And that's something that you guys could do. But you're going to be doing something like that to bring money in first. Then, when you get really good and you're building up a good cash flow, then you can graduate to that genre that's really part of your passion. Excuse me. Don't forget, restaurants love and need food photography. So that's something you can get into. And I apologize for sounding salesy here, but Kelly and I do teach how to get food photography and product photography in our new course, which is called Product Photography Mastery, and that's at markhemmings.com. But aside from that, if you have the ability to help restaurants do their menu photography, that's also very good. And you can actually do that using window light. So yeah, I hope that helps. It's probably not the best answer, but that's what I do suggest, and that's what I did starting out. Pam, good to see you. Hey guys, you're in. Hello again, Mark. Hi, Mark. I've been practicing photography for a year. Should I choose one or two genres to spend more time to practice or take photos of everything? Okay, so this is very similar actually to my last piece of advice. When you're practicing, yes, multi-genre. Get as many genres in as possible when you're practicing. This is very important. But when you're looking for jobs for clients, you should really look for the quick and easy money. And the reason being, and by the way, I'm separating this for those who are into photography as art because they don't need cash. This is a different story. I'm talking about those who want to build up a photography business. You're looking for the clients that need service right away, and you want to get that cash flow going because the last thing you want to do is go into debt to buy gear or to go into debt to do advertising. You want to get the low-hanging fruit, and that low-hanging fruit is usually the weddings, the family portraits, the pet photography, the menu items for the local restaurants, and stuff like that. Okay? Gieland, welcome. Laut Bajang. Hey, all. Really good to see you all. When did you start photography and what inspired you to become a professional? Great question. 23 years ago. And I came into photography because my university sent me to Japan. This was in 98, I believe. And I was there as a recruiter, a student recruiter. And when I went there, I took my grandfather's camera, and I had a great time learning how to take pictures there for the 5 weeks. I got back, the photos were really good. I still have them. And then I got working in the movie industry as a stills photographer. So I started out in the Hollywood movie biz up here in Eastern Canada, and it was a lot of fun. And then I got into advertising, and then I got in very early into travel photography, and that has been my primary interest, also architecture and product photography as well. So thanks for asking, by the way. I really appreciate it. Ash K, good to see you. Perfect example, an 11 by 14 print. I have Photoshop Elements and brand new to Lightroom CC. Okay, Photoshop Elements does allow you to create exports of custom sizes, if I recall. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're looking for an 11 by 14 print, it's very easy. You can write this down if you want. All you have to do is export, and you don't need to worry about interpolation settings because Photoshop Express or Elements does it for you. And you just export it at 300 dots per inch, DPI. Sometimes they call it pixels per inch, but I think it's usually dots per inch, DPI. And you're going to set the inches at 11 by 14. Now, if you can't set it by inches and you can only set it by pixels, well, that's a different story. That's going to be a huge amount of pixels. But I believe that you can set your 11 by 14 export as inches. So let me say that again, 300 DPI, sometimes 300 PPI, and 11 inches by 14 inches. When that export happens, Photoshop Elements is going to either interpolate up if your picture is less resolution than that, no problem, it'll do a good job. Or if you have a super camera that's like 36 megapixels, like a really expensive one, it would actually reduce the size to get to that 11 by 14. But so few of us have that type of gear. My guess is that Photoshop is going to increase the size artificially, which is called interpolation. But don't be afraid of interpolation. It's actually really good quality these days, and it's remarkable at how software can increase the size of a digital picture digitally, and it still looks very good. So that would export probably as a JPEG, and it may export as a TIFF, but I'm not sure if it does. But really, you're looking for quality 12 in your JPEG. That's the highest quality JPEG, and you can send that out to your printer, and they'll do a fine job. Now, if it's a professional printer that requires a TIFF or a PSD, then check to see in your export settings when you are exporting the picture if you can actually choose a TIFF or a PSD. This will be higher quality, but it'll be a huge file size, so you will not be able to email that file. You can, however, email that file if it's a JPEG to your local or wherever you're getting that print done. Soulful Lens, if that answered your question, great. If it didn't, ask more below, and I'll be happy to help out. Obed Fritz, welcome. Is taking prints necessary? Are you referring to making prints, like printing them out? The answer is no, it's not necessary. It's just good. You know, it's nice, especially for future generations, because, you know, whenever I look at my great grandparents' photos or whatever, they're all in print form, and they survived all the generations. Unfortunately, a lot of times in the digital world, if someone passes away without giving the password to their computer to their family members, all of their pictures disappear instantly because no one can access the computer. And then a whole generation potentially, or a hard drive full of family pictures, that all disappears, and future generations don't get the joy of looking at the photos from their history. So that's where printing comes in really good. It's actually more so for your children, your great grandchildren, and so on, so they have a physical copy of the history of you. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. Okay, Lynn, welcome. Scotch Bonnet Photography. Ma Amin 14, one little sip of my double espresso given to me by my personal barista, whose Instagram is at RN Sophia. I'm doing a big plug for her. Okay, I'm starting portrait and product photo and need to acquire lighting gears. What's the best combo I should go with? Something versatile for both purposes, speed light, diffusers, etc. Yes, definitely. So Ma Amin, I'm not sure what country you're coming from. However, every country has at least one, well, I shouldn't say every country, every large country has one major city that has their own camera store in it. And if that's not the case, then you just go online to Amazon. Now, when I say Amazon, I do tend to prefer that you buy locally, but in a pinch, if you can't buy locally, then yes, you would go to Amazon, and you're going to find a beginner's studio kit. Now, there's so many companies that make these, and they're all fine. And let me think here. I think that anything that's, let me see here. If you're going to spend 200 bucks and up, you're going to be fine with the quality of the kit. And if you, here's what I'll do for you. If you find a beginner's kit, and by the way, beginner's kit comes with 2 studio strobes, we call them. That's a fancy word for flash. And on those two strobes, it comes with either 1 umbrella and 1 softbox, or 2 softboxes. And these softboxes are either square or they're circular, like kind of in a what'd you call it, an octagonal shape. It also comes with a trigger or a physical cable that will go from the lights to your camera to actually activate the flash. So when you get your, let's just say that you got 2 or 3 options that you found online, I will help you. You send me a DM with those links, and I will let you know what I think is best. And I'll do that just for you because I love studio work. I've done studio work for the last 2 decades, and I don't do it anymore because almost all my work is travel based. However, I love the studio, and it's part of my history, so I will help you with that. Okay, Dom Greco Photo, welcome. By the way, if you've just joined, um, I have a Q&A session. Anything photo related, ask me. No questions too stupid, no questions too basic. And if I don't know the answer, then I will tell you that I don't know the answer. I'd rather be accurate than to lead you all astray. Greek coffee, of course. Yes, Sotirios Kanomi, my friend. This is actually not Greek coffee today. My daughter is an espresso machine whiz, and the reason being is she's looking for work in any great cafe for this summer. So she's really getting into our normal espresso machine. However, I do have a soft spot for Greek coffee. Well explained, says JMO. I'm glad to hear that. C Arc. Okay, hey everybody. How do I decide which genre I must go in, please? Yes, so interestingly, I did mention that to some extent, but if you're doing this for hobby and your great passion, then you're going to go with the genre that you are excited about. If you're going to go into photography to make money, then first I would suggest that you go into the genre that can make the most amount of money quickly and get a solid income up, save a good savings for equipment and for advertising, and then you worry about the genre later on that you actually prefer, and that will come to you actually. So when I say what genre, that would be weddings, that would be portraits, that would be pet photography, that would be, um, like I said, food photography for restaurants for their menus, and anything that local companies would actually need right away. Okay? Hope that helps. Good to see you all. I learned from your course about using light, especially golden hours, blue hours. Is it better than studio light indoors? Well, it's not that it's better, to be honest, but it's easier. And whenever we're dealing with lighting a product or a person or something, it's so much easier to deal with the beauty and the ease of either morning or evening light. And I will say that from years of being in the studio, it's not easy to replicate that or to make people look great in a studio environment unless you are very well attuned to using the studio strobes and the color gels and all of the changes that are needed to provide that warmth or that coolness within that picture. So I'm not discouraging learning about studio work because I think studio work is fantastic. However, it's easier if you're just starting out to get all of your key shots. When I say key shot, I mean like something for your website or for a new client. Then get that outside, or at least make use of that warm light inside, but allow that light to come in through the window. Okay, hope that helps. And with regards to studio light, I I'm just going to say this one more time because I don't want to sound salesmanish, but in the new course that I do with Kelly Lawson at my website, markhemmings.com, we do go into how to create your own studio in your own house for free. When I say free, I mean like minimal dollars, for like $20 or $30 with equipment that you usually have, no lights needed. Okay, Justin, welcome. Avinanda, welcome. Good to see you all. Is taking prints important? Yeah, I think I answered that. Yes, it is. Great, thank you, says Unleash Your Emotions. Great, I'll try the 50 millimeter. I got one from a friend and rarely use it as I got an 85. Oh, okay. Huh. So you have the 85 1.4. Hmm. Well, that might change my answer a little bit, GHB, but you know what? The 50 millimeter you can't go wrong with it because even if you buy it used, it's still excellent and it's really inexpensive and you don't need the 1.4 for the 50 millimeter. I usually just suggest, because of budget that people get the f1.8, to be honest. Alessandra, good to see you. Sorry I'm late, no problem. Need to go to the groceries. Yes, I'll be doing that probably after this as well. Hopefully you got a good supply, Alessandra. My camera is the same as yours, 7D. Yes, 7D is still a very good camera. By the way, if anyone's looking for a camera that they can buy used, my suggestion is the 7D by Canon or the Canon 5D Mark III. Now, the Mark III is now getting actually quite old, but interestingly, it's still in use by the folks in my brother's company, their filmmaking company, Hemmings House. And I'm amazed that that thing has taken the greatest beating, yet it still produces amazing photos. So if you are ever wanting to upgrade to what we call a prosumer camera, and the Canon 5D Mark III, and in fact, all of those, the Mark II, the Mark III, the Mark IV, those are prosumer cameras, meaning it's in between the consumer and the professional model. Yeah, I would say just get a used 7D or 5D Mark III or used 5D Mark IV, which would be even better, from a reputable dealer that can offer you a 30-day used warranty, and you'll be all set. Okay, Photo Canuck, oh, good to see you. Are you going to do online courses? I do have online courses, Matthew. So if you just check out www.markhemmings.com, I now have 5 online photography courses, and I'm really proud of them. And I'm happy to say that they, from what I can tell from all the reviews and so on, that people really enjoyed them. So check out markhemmings.com. Mark Fowler, good to see you as always, my friend. I'm indoors, Mark, as you know, because you're not too far away. It's not very pleasant outside. Soda, welcome. Abby Sheck, any lockdown photography ideas? Yes, I strongly suggest becoming a master of still life. Now, still life can be a vase of pretty flowers that you got at the grocery store on your your adventure outside once a week or whatever. But it can also be portraiture. So you would, if you have a family member or something, you would actually practice with them using window light. And this could be headshot type photography. Just make sure that your background is clean. So that's why usually using a black sheet or black fabric behind them would be really attractive using natural window light. Or you could go the opposite and use white, but I would tend that black is probably going to be more effective. And then you actually turn that picture black and white itself and get a really cool fine art portrait. So those are the two things. Practice fine art portraiture using window light and become really well versed in still life. Also, whenever you make a meal, I would advise practicing photographing that meal so you can get really good at food photography. Food photography is actually probably quite profitable if you have the ability to get a portfolio together and to take around to the local restaurants, especially because my guess is that restaurants, whether good or bad, there's debate. Uh, Restaurants are probably going to be pretty packed fairly soon because people are so pent up and they just want to go out. And so restaurants may be needing some, some new shots of their new menu. My guess is because the restaurants had a lot of time during COVID to do nothing. They're probably creating new menus. So that's my suggestion for all you guys is get used to photographing your food, get a portfolio together. And I apologize for this, but it's so well timed that the product photography mastery course that I just released on my website, markhemmings.com, with Kelly Lawson, we teach how to get food photography in it. And you could recoup the cost of that course by one or two jobs at your local restaurants. That's my guess. Okay, JMO. It'll be better if you can pin the questions to be highlighted so everyone knows what is being explained. Just a suggestion. Can you do this, JMO13? I have no idea. So if you know that I can do this, please tell me how, because I would love to be able to do that. This is all I know. And maybe if someone knows Instagram better than I do, if the question comes in comment section, and if I read it, then that's going to disappear when new comments come through. So if I go to the question mark here, I have these questions that I'll get to, but the only problem with these questions, or this place, is that if the question is more than 3 sentences long, then it cuts off. So let me take a look here. Let's go to Guntar's. Mark, would it be good if I try to use bulb mode for star trail photography? Yes. Yeah, definitely. You definitely want bulb mode. By the way, if anyone wants to know what that means, bulb mode is when you keep the shutter open for as long as you want, and this is perfect for star trail photography. So yeah, Gunter's question was only 2 sentences long, or 2 lines long, so that was perfect. Let's see if I have another one here that's longer. Amorimi. Hi, Mark. Did you ever use the 23mm f2 Canon lens, which they call pancake lens? So I haven't, but I think this is a brilliant street photography lens. If anyone is wanting to have a Canon street photography lens that's small, really unobtrusive, lightweight, is not going to be a threat for thieves, or what would you call it, enticement for thieves, that pancake lens is really good. Now, it's true that it's not as sharp around the perimeter as the other lenses in Canon's lineup, but here's what you can do. Don't bother with going to f2, go to f4.5 or f5.6 when you're doing a street photography, and I guarantee you'll be super happy with that lens. It's very cheap. It is so small and so lightweight. I definitely recommend that. Really good idea. Okay. EK Nadan, your toughest click. Yeah, so the toughest photo shoot that I've had, let me think here. Yeah, well, I don't do weddings, so I can't answer that, but I would imagine that weddings would be the toughest. But usually, if I have a client that I really like and they ask me to do an event photo job, and I don't usually do events very much, but if there's any type of scenario where you have multi-million dollar CEOs of companies, and their time is like 1 minute of their time is worth like maybe 3 days of my salary. They're always like, it's super high pressure. And I've been in those situations before. So yeah, I would definitely say it's event photography when we're dealing with very, very high-end CEOs who demand immediate work. And I've been in that situation, so many times, and you have to be so quick on your feet. Yeah, your equipment can't fail, and if it does, then you're in big trouble. And yeah, I've been in those situations, and that has been definitely my toughest click, toughest photo shoot many times. Oh, that's good. Okay, photography to me is like golf. I'm passionate about it, but I'm not going to make a living from it. I currently have a Nikon D30-100. What would be? Okay, so here's my problem, and maybe someone can help me out here. Muma's sparkles. Unfortunately, because it was more than 4 lines, I can't even read it. So I'm at a loss, really. I wish Instagram would make this easier for me. So Muma Sparkles, I just need you to finish your question, and I would be happy to help out. Okay? Thank you. Okay, which lens would you suggest for product photography like hung clothes? I would say the 50 mil would be good. It would be really good. And it's cheap, it's sharp, it has a good wide open aperture, and you can buy them used even and make it even cheaper. That's what I would suggest. It's a good middle ground lens. So I think I love the 50 millimeter f1.8. It's very versatile. Okay, I'm just going to scroll back here because I know I'm missing a whole bunch. One second. Sorry, here, one second here. Okay. Yeah, so JMO 13, it's such a struggle for me to I'd love to be able to pin comments that come from the comment section instead of the question mark section. Okay. Hello everybody, all new people. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, we're doing Q&A session, photo related, equipment related, app related, anything that you want. Mark, I'm already into landscape, nature, and architectural genre, as already mentioned. I like this genre, but I've realized it's difficult to make money in the genre. You also think so? Yes. Yeah. It's not easy. And for a number of reasons. Why is that landscapes, there's the market for stock photography for landscape and nature was saturated 10 years ago. And unfortunately, like I used to do stock photography, and there was a golden era, a golden age of stock photography where landscape photographers could make a fortune creating landscape photos and selling through like agencies like Getty. And then when digital came and microstock, which I blame Getty for, you get $1 per picture, and all these great photographers, these landscape and nature photographers, they all their income dried up because of ridiculously low licensing rates for stock photography. Now, architecture is a little bit different. And if it's not glamorous at all, but you could get into architecture by building up your portfolio by photographing for all of the real estate agents that you know or in your city. Now, it's true that real estate agents may not have extra cash right now to pay you. So you may not want to do that right away. But as soon as the real estate economy starts to build back up, and we all know that it will because real estate is cyclical, then what I would suggest is to get your foot in the door in the architectural world by doing real estate photography for your agents. And maybe every 3 houses, one of those will be good. And within that one house, you'll have a really cool kitchen or a really cool, maybe master bedroom. And that will be part of your portfolio. Then you go to the architects in your city. You say, look, here's my portfolio. I will give you a one photo shoot freebie of the architecturally designed house of your choice if you consider looking at my portfolio and hiring me for future jobs. And that will be the in that you want for architecture. And for architecture, you can actually charge money and charge pretty good money for it because architects demand excellence. And when you become really good at architectural photography, then you can actually charge for it. So to answer landscape and nature, you're probably not going to make much money, but architecture, you can. Soaring Modi, saw many of your videos on Facebook, saved and learned a lot. Oh, that's really good. By the way, if anyone wants to know, my Facebook page is at Mark Hemmings Photography. It's not Mark Hemmings. That's me personally. I don't really do anything with that. It's Mark Hemmings Photography. And the Facebook page has a lot of really good, I believe, really good free content for you guys to learn photography. Pavan Rohit, welcome. Marini, to find a genre for hobby, it's a nice thing to go through Pinterest, pin the 50 pictures you like the most and would love to take. Then every day, take 10 out of the list you like least. Well, that's a very interesting idea, Marini. I've never thought of that. And that sort of really helps you compress that list down to what you really like. And I didn't mention Pinterest because I forgot about it, but that's true. Pinterest is a great resource for getting inspiration on your preferred genres. And it's also a great resource to get inspiration for how the photographer photographed the product or the service or the tiny house or whatever you're interested in. So it's a two-pronged thing. So yes, Pinterest is a really good resource. Thank you for that. Nita, welcome. Pam says, hi, Mark. I'm thinking of venturing into family portraits as a business. My Canon EOS Rebel T5i with two kit lenses, the 15 to 55 and the 55 to 250. Would any of the lenses I could use, or should I invest in another lens? Okay, so family portraits are a little bit tricky with regards to kit lenses because kit lenses have what we call a they're a slow lens, meaning that the lowest f-stop number is usually 4.5 or 5.6. However, Pam, I don't want you to go out and spend a ton of money. So what I would suggest is family portraiture. If you're only going to get one more lens, you get what's called the 50 millimeter f1.8. And this will actually be adequate for a number of reasons. You can get full body portraits if you back up quite a bit. You can get upper body portraits if you just move in slightly, and you can get headshots because your camera is what we call an APS-C size camera. That means that 50 millimeter lens is actually going to be, in the full frame world or designation, a 75 millimeter approximately, a 75 or 80 millimeter lens. This is very good for portrait headshots. So again, I'll say the 50 millimeter f1.8 is going to be good for full body shots. If you have a lot of space, you'll move back. It'll be very good for your upper body and good for your headshot. So that's what I would advise. And with those three lenses, you'll be all set for any of those family portrait needs. And yes, I think you should do it. I think that family portraiture is a very noble thing to do because you're actually contributing to the history of mankind, the history of humankind, the history of that family, because that family will take that photo and hopefully print it out or save it for the future generations, and you will be a part of that history. Integrity joined. Good to see you. I have a 90D camera. Saring Modi, I apologize. I totally forget what your question was. I'm sorry about that. I have, looks like up here, it says I have 3 minutes left. So Saring Modi, if you could just let me know what your question was with regards to the 90D cam, I would appreciate that. I'm just going to pop over to the question marks here. St. Cara Market, good to see you, fellow St. John, St. Johner, I guess we would say. Do you have any tips for food photography? Yes. St. Cara Market, you are a fellow St. Johner, so I'm certainly able to help you even further after this. But for food photography, you're going to want to do it cheap, but good. And that means using a good size window, usually a picture window, using a desk, using a reflector, such as a Bristol board, and photographing with a long lens at a 45-degree angle. And I'm not sure, you probably know our mutual friend, Kelly Lawson from St. John, and she has just released a new course with me co-teaching it called Product Photography Mastery, which goes into food photography as well. And that is at markhemmings.com or kellylawson.ca. And it's a really good course that we just finished, and it's for product photography, food photography, fashion, and for anything for anything to help people get their food photographed well to present to their clients. So it's sort of a B2B type arrangement. So check that out. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Okay, everybody, I have 59 seconds left. My Instagram clock is going down, so I'm going to try to get as many quickly done as possible. How long would you wait for the perfect shot? The longest I've waited for the perfect street photo was a half an hour or 40 minutes. And it was worth it too. Okay. One more question, then I have to go. What camera do you recommend for someone who wants to start out but gain experience? I suggest the Fujifilm X-T200. X-T200 by Fujifilm. It's very good and not too expensive. Okay, my friends, I do have to leave. I have 20 seconds left. I don't want to cut it off, so I would like to say thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this, and let's continue this tomorrow. Bring your questions, and I'm always excited to hear your questions. All the best. God bless. Bye-bye.